When making a strategy game based on real historical events, how do you make those factions feel more historically inspired? One way could be giving the faction perks whose effects are inspired by real historical events associated with the faction. An example of this can be seen in Total War Attila and its representation of the Ostrogoths. Total War Attila is Creative Assembly's 9th entry in the Total War series. Set in the year 395 AD, the main campaign is based around the events of the rise and fall of the Huns, the European migration period, and the fall of the Western Roman Empire. The game's playable factions are all drawn from this time period, such as the Romans, Huns, Saasanids, Himyarites, Vandals, and etc. Each is given a faction trait whose effects and descriptions are inspired by real history. One faction that stands out in the campaign is the Ostrogoths. In their faction trait, they are described as the heirs of Rome, which primarily helps them when occupying Roman settlements. It gives them limited access to Roman units, and they don't have to suffer from public order penalties. In this video, we'll look over the Ostrogoths during their time in the Eastern Roman Empire, the Romanization of King Theodoric, his war against Odoacer, and how he ruled Italy. To start, we'll look at what the Ostrogoths did during their time in the Eastern Roman Empire, and the possible historical inspirations behind their limited access to Roman units in Total War Attila's main campaign. During the late 5th century, the Ostrogoths migrated around the lands south of the Danube. They settled in Pannonia before migrating to the Eastern Roman province of Macedonia, where they became foederati in the Eastern Roman Imperial Army. After the year 474, they were united under the leadership of Theodoric of the Amali dynasty. His relationship with the Roman world began when his uncle, King Valimir, sent Theodoric at a young age to Constantinople as a royal hostage. It was during this time Theodoric received a Roman education, learning to read and write in Latin and the intricacies of the Roman imperial court. Later, he began his rise to power by taking command of an army of Goths, leading them to victory over the Sarmatian king Babai near Sinigundum. Following this victory, Theodoric's army proclaimed him their king, and in 474, after his father's death, Theodoric was made king of all the Ostrogoths. In 479, following a brief attempt at settling in Macedonia, Theodoric took his Ostrogoths north to Mysia, where he allied himself with another group of Goths in nearby Thrace, led by another Theodoric, more commonly known as Theodoric Strabo. The two Gothic warlords united their forces in a war against the Eastern Roman Emperor Zeno, who had previously tried and failed to get the two Theodorics to fight each other. In 481, following several skirmishes, Theodoric Strabo died in a horse-riding accident. His Thracian Goths quickly swore allegiance to Theodoric of the Amali, uniting the two Gothic groups together. In the face of this growing Ostrogothic power, in the year 482, Emperor Zeno tried to win Theodoric over by awarding him the military title of Magister Militum. This was followed up in 484 with Theodoric being appointed as consul and given land in Mysia for his Ostrogoths to settle. He would even briefly command a combined Gothic-Roman army in a planned campaign against rebels in Asia Minor. However, Zeno quickly recalled Theodoric out of fear of disloyalty from the Gothic king. This, however, shows that even before the establishment of the Ostrogothic kingdom, Theodoric was already gaining Roman titles and commanded Roman soldiers in addition to his Gothic warriors. The Ostrogoths wouldn't remain in the Eastern Roman Empire for long, however. In this next part, we'll look at Theodoric leading the Ostrogoths from on-again, off-again vassals of the Eastern Roman Empire to rulers of a powerful kingdom in Italy. In 486, despite being given land and titles by the emperor, Theodoric rebelled against Constantinople and raided the province of Thrace. Emperor Zeno couldn't buy Theodoric's loyalty with land and titles this time, so he fell back on an old strategy, getting his enemies to fight each other, and in this case, convincing Theodoric to go to war with Italy's de facto ruler, Odoacer. By this time, Odoacer had ruled Italy for over 10 years since he ousted the last Western Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus. Since then, his power grew, taking Sicily from the Vandals, defeating the Rugians in Noricum, and claiming all of Illyria following the death of the former Western Roman Emperor Julius Nepos. Emperor Zeno offered Italy to Theodoric to settle and rule as Constantinople's viceroy. In 488, Theodoric accepted, and with his Ostrogoths began the march west from Mysia. On the way to Italy, the Gothic army was bolstered by Rugians who had fled Odoacer. Theodoric arrived in northern Italy the next year, fighting several battles against Odoacer's army, before laying siege to his capital of Ravenna. After a 4-year-long siege, Odoacer attempted to sue for peace, offering joint rule of Italy. Theodoric agreed, but at the peace banquet, he had Odoacer and his followers all killed. In 492, Theodoric and the Ostrogoths claimed rule over all of Italy. In Total War Attila, the Ostrogoths' heirs of Rome trait allows them not to suffer public honor penalties when taking Roman settlements. The possible historical inspiration for this can be seen in Theodoric's relations with the Church and Senate of Rome. These two groups, representing Italy's political and social elite, would help Theodoric secure his rule over the region. Theodoric's relationship with the Church effectively started immediately after Odoacer's defeat, but it was his role in the Laurentian Schism that would shape Church-Ostrogoth relations. In 498, the Roman Church was divided when 2 elections were held and 2 rival claimants were chosen to be the Bishop of Rome, Laurentius and Symmachus. While the former received support from Emperor Zeno's successor, Anastasius, the Church in Rome asked Theodoric to arbitrate. He would go on to support Symmachus, since he had won the first of the 2 elections. Pope Symmachus would return the favor by leading the Roman clergy to proclaim their support for Theodoric and organize the grand welcome during his visit to Rome in 500. This is ironic considering the Arian sect of Christianity, followed by the Ostrogoths, was considered heresy by the Chalcedonian Christian Church of Rome. Regardless of denominational differences, the Roman Church's support for Theodoric provided him legitimacy for his rule in the eyes of Italy's majority Chalcedonian Christian population. The Senate was the second of the 2 Roman groups Theodoric worked with when ruling Italy. Despite the last Western Roman emperor being deposed in 476, the Senate remained in place, and Odoacer even gave them more power and authority. Despite this relationship, the Senate quickly sided with the invading Ostrogoths when it was clear who would win the war. Following his victory, Theodoric, like Odoacer, continued to work with the Roman Senate in the governance of Italy. By giving his support to the Roman Senate, Theodoric was able to ally himself with the rich and powerful of Italian society. This, in turn, gave him access to the Roman bureaucracy, which aided in collecting taxes and transporting goods. It also granted Theodoric legitimacy. Rather than being seen as another barbarian invader, through working with and supporting existing Roman institutions, he could portray himself as more of a proper ruler. With the support of the Roman Senate and its bureaucratic system, Theodoric's rule over Italy was made more stable in the years following the defeat of Odoacer. The Ostrogoths in Total War Attila are represented as the heirs of Rome through their faction trait. This gives several bonuses inspired by the Romanization of the Ostrogoths and how they ruled their kingdom. During the Ostrogoths' time in the Eastern Roman Empire, Theodoric was given a Roman education, reached the title of consul, and was given land for his Ostrogoths to settle. He was even briefly given command of an Eastern Roman army, which can be seen as a possible historical inspiration for the trait that gives the Ostrogoths limited access to Roman units. This trait also gives the Ostrogoths no public order penalties for conquering Roman settlements. The historical inspiration for this can be seen in how Theodoric allied himself with the powerful elites of Rome, which helped him to gain legitimacy in the eyes of the Italian populace and helped the Ostrogoths govern the region. It is interesting to see how much historical inspiration there is behind different aspects of historically inspired games, like the Ostrogoths and their heirs of Rome trait in Total War Attila. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.